The ship's alarm system began screaming without warning. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors, and Jake felt the deck vibrate under his feet as the engines changed their rhythm. Velther's compound eyes went wide, and the alien medics. Bioluminescent patterns turned a deep orange color that Jake had never seen before. "What's happening?" Lisa asked, her voice tight with fear. Velther was already moving toward the corridor, all four arms working frantically at a portable control device. "They found us," the alien medic said. "The Devourers have found us." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. "Here? Now?" "Impossible," Velther muttered, still working at the controls. "The stealth system should have hidden our biosignatures." The ship shuddered violently, and Jake heard the unmistakable sound of weapons fire. Something was attacking the Zephyrian vessel, something that had followed them across space. "We need to get to the colony ship," Lisa said. "We need to warn everyone." "The colony ship left orbit 3 hours ago," Velther said, without looking up from the controls. "They were evacuating to a safer system." Jake grabbed Velther's upper arm. "You let them leave without us?" "The medical ship needed to remain here to complete your treatment," Velther replied. "The enhancement process could not be interrupted." "So, you used us as bait," Jake said, understanding flooding through him. "You kept us here to draw the Devourers away from the colony." Velther's patterns flashed angry red. "I kept you here to save your lives." The ship shook again, harder this time. Through the walls, Jake could hear the sound of something tearing through metal. The Devourers were not just attacking from a distance. They were boarding the ship. "We need weapons," Jake said. "Zephyrians do not carry personal weapons," Velther replied. "We rely on ship defenses." "Which obviously aren't working," Jake shot back. A new sound echoed through the ship. It was like nothing Jake had ever heard before. A wet, clicking noise that made his skin crawl. It was getting closer. "The bioenhancement lab," Velther said suddenly. "We must reach the enhancement lab. There are emergency protocols." "What kind of protocols?" Jake asked. "Emergency activation sequences," Velther explained as they began moving through the corridors. "If the ship is compromised, the enhancement systems can be activated at maximum power." Jake did not like the sound of that. Maximum power for what? "To create emergency combat units," Velther said. "You mean to force the enhancement process on whoever is available," Jake realized. "To save lives by any means necessary," Velther corrected. They reached the junction corridor when the first Devourer appeared. Jake's enhanced vision took in every horrible detail in an instant. The creature was about the size of a large human, but that was where any similarity ended. Its body was a shifting mass of dark, oily flesh that seemed to move independently of any skeleton. Multiple limbs sprouted from various points on its torso, each ending in claws that dripped with acid. But it was the head that made Jake's stomach turn. The creature had no face, just a circular mouth filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth that rotated like a drill. Devourer moved faster than anything that size should have been able to move. It launched itself at Lisa with a sound like tearing fabric. Jake reacted without thinking, his enhanced reflexes kicking in automatically. He threw himself between Lisa and the creature, catching it in midair. The impact should have knocked Jake backward, but his enhanced strength held firm. The Devourer's claws raked across his arms, and Jake expected to feel burning pain. Instead, he watched in amazement as his skin healed almost instantly. The enhancement process had made him more resilient than he had realized. Jake grabbed the creature by what might have been its neck and slammed it against the wall. The impact left a dent in the metal, and the Devourer's movements became sluggish. But it was not dead. The creature's drilling mouth turned toward Jake's face, and he could smell the acid on its breath. "Behind you!" Lisa shouted. Jake spun around to see two more Devourers emerging from a side corridor. These were larger than the first one, and they moved with a coordinated intelligence that was terrifying. They were hunting as a pack. Velther stepped forward, and Jake saw that the alien medic was holding some kind of device. Energy crackled from its surface, and when Velther pointed it at the nearest devourer, the creature convulsed and fell to the floor. Neural disruptor, Velther explained. Temporary paralysis only. How temporary? Jake asked, still holding. The first devourer. Perhaps 10 minutes, Velther replied. Jake looked down at the creature in his hands. Its mouth was still trying to reach him, and he could see intelligence in its movements. This was not a mindless beast. It was a thinking. Planning killer. The enhancement lab, Jake said. How far? 2 levels down, Velther replied. But the corridors may be compromised. More sounds echoed through the ship. Wet, sliding noises that suggested many more devourers were moving through the vessel. Jake could hear Zephyrian voices calling out in their own language, but the calls were getting fewer and more distant. The crew? Lisa asked. Either dead or being consumed, Velther said matter-of-factly. Devourers do not take prisoners. Jake felt sick. What do they want? Biological material, Velther explained as they began moving toward the enhancement lab. They consume other species to fuel their own evolution. They are particularly interested in enhanced subjects. They're here for us, Jake realized. For the enhanced humans. Among other things, Velther confirmed. Enhanced biologicals provide superior nutrition for their growth processes. Jake looked at Lisa, who had gone pale. So we're not just test subjects. We're also bait. The enhancement process was always intended to create soldiers capable of fighting the devourers, Velther said. But the timing of this attack was unexpected. They reached a vertical shaft with a platform that moved up and down between levels. As they descended, Jake could see more evidence of the devourer attack. Sections of the ship's walls had been dissolved by acid, and there were dark stains on the floors that Jake tried not to think about. How long have you been fighting them? Jake asked. Centuries, Velther replied. They appeared in our space approximately 300 years ago. Since then, they have consumed 17 worlds and countless ships. 17 worlds? Lisa whispered. Entire planets, Velther confirmed. Billions of lives. They leave nothing behind but empty husks. The platform reached their destination, and they stepped out into a corridor that looked different from the others. The walls here were lined with equipment that hummed with barely contained power. Jake could feel energy in the air, making his enhanced senses tingle. The enhancement lab is through here, Velther said, leading them to a large door. Inside are emergency protocols that can accelerate the enhancement process. On who? Jake asked. On anyone who volunteers, Velther replied. The process can create combat-capable subjects in minutes instead of days. At what cost? Jake demanded. Survival. Rate is approximately 30%, Velther admitted. Jake stared at the alien medic. You want to kill 7 out of 10 people to create 3 enhanced soldiers? I want to save lives by any means available, Velther replied. 3 enhanced. Soldiers are better than 10 dead civilians. Before Jake could respond, they heard the wet sliding sound of devourers moving through the corridor behind them. A lot of devourers. They're following our biosignatures, Velther said, working frantically at the door controls. Enhanced subjects. Produce distinctive energy patterns. The door opened, revealing a chamber filled with strange equipment. In the center were 4 pods that looked like the beds Jake had seen in the medical bay, but these were connected to massive arrays of machinery that pulsed with power. Emergency enhancement stations, Velther explained. They can force the integration process at maximum speed. Jake looked at the pods and felt a chill. Those will kill anyone who uses them. They will transform anyone willing to accept the enhancement, Velther corrected. Transformation or death. Those are the only options now. The sounds in the corridor were getting closer. Jake could hear the acid hiss of devourer claws cutting through metal. They had perhaps minutes before the creatures broke through. There has to be another way, Lisa said. There is no other way, Velther replied. The Devourers will consume everyone on this ship unless we can create enough enhanced soldiers to fight them. Jake looked at the emergency enhancement pods again. 4 stations. 4 chances to create enhanced humans who might be able to survive what was coming. But with only a 30% survival rate, using all 4 pods meant that at least 2 people would die in the process. What about Tom, Amy, and Danny? Jake asked. They're already enhanced. Their enhancement processes are incomplete and unstable, Velther said. They would not survive combat with Devourers. But I would, Jake said. You would have the best chance, Velther confirmed. Your adaptation has been remarkably successful. Jake felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him. He could try to fight the Devourers alone with his enhanced abilities. He could convince others to risk the emergency enhancement process, or he could watch everyone die while the creatures consumed the ship. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the chamber. The Devourers had found them. Choose quickly, Velther. Time has run out. Jake could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his friends suffering in that medical room. Tom's confused mumbling, Amy's terrified stare, Danny's uncontrolled movements. Velther had forced him to return to his own room, claiming that his presence might interfere with their treatment. But Jake knew the truth now. The alien medic was not trying to help them anymore. They were just experiments. He sat up in the strange bed and looked around his room. The walls still pulsed with their soft light, and the floating panels continued their quiet work. But now everything felt different. This was not a medical bay. It was a laboratory, and he was a specimen. Jake stood up and moved to the door. 2. His surprise? It opened easily. He had expected to be locked in, but apparently Velther was confident that he would not try to escape. Or maybe the alien medic wanted him to explore. Maybe watching Jake's behavior was part of the experiment. The corridors were dimly lit, and Jake could hear the soft humming that seemed to come from the ship itself. He moved carefully, trying to remember the way back to the room where his friends were being held. As he walked, he noticed that his footsteps made no sound. His enhanced hearing picked up other sounds instead. Voices speaking in the Zephyrian language, the whisper of air through the ship's systems, the distant throb of engines. Jake paused at a junction of corridors. He could hear voices coming from one direction. Zephyrian voices, but the translation device he had been given was not with him. Still, something about the tone made him curious. He moved closer, staying in the shadows. Through an open doorway, Jake could see 3 Zephyrians standing around a floating display. One of them was Velther. The alien medic's forearms moved as it manipulated controls, and images appeared in the air above the display. Jake crept closer, trying to see what they were looking at. The images showed biological diagrams. Human biological diagrams. Jake recognized his own medical scans among them. But there were other diagrams too. Alien creatures that looked nothing like humans or Zephyrians. They were dark and twisted, with too many limbs and mouths full of sharp teeth. Velther was speaking rapidly to the other 2 Zephyrians. Jake could not understand the words, but he could see that the alien medic was excited about something. The bioluminescent patterns on Velther's skin were pulsing faster than Jake had ever seen. One of the other Zephyrians made a gesture that looked like disagreement. Velther responded by pointing at Jake's medical scans and then at the images of the dark creatures. Jake caught a few words that the translation system in the room picked up automatically. Adaptation successful. Came through the speakers in mechanical English. Human subject shows remarkable integration. Jake pressed himself against the wall, trying to hear more. Integration parameters exceed projections, Velther's voice continued. Subject demonstrates enhanced physical capabilities and accelerated healing without rejection symptoms. The second Zephyrian spoke, and Jake heard, other subjects failing. Process still too dangerous for mass application. This subject proves humans are compatible, Velther replied. We need only refine the process. The third Zephyrian made a sound that the translator did not interpret. but the tone seemed worried, Council growing impatient. Devourer scouts reported in 3 systems, time running short. Jake felt his blood run cold. Devourers, the dark creatures in the images. Velther manipulated the display again, and new images appeared. These showed star maps with red zones spreading across multiple systems. Human enhancement program essential. For survival, this species shows unprecedented adaptability. At what cost? The second Zephyrian asked. 3 or 4 subjects experiencing severe complications. Acceptable losses, Velther replied without emotion. 1 successful integration. Provides data for improvement. Next group will have higher success rate. Jake realized what he was hearing. They were planning to enhance more humans. Many more humans. And they considered the suffering and death of his friends to be acceptable losses in their grand experiment. Colony. Population provides adequate test space, Velther continued. Recommend proceeding with enhanced integration protocol on remaining civilians. Council has not approved mass testing, the third Zephyrian said. Council will approve when they see results, Velther replied. This human proves enhancement possible. Imagine entire armies of enhanced soldiers. Jake had heard enough. He backed. Away from the doorway, his mind racing. The Zephyrians were planning to use the entire colony as test subjects. They wanted to create enhanced human soldiers to fight these devourers. And they did not care how many humans died in the process. As Jake moved through the corridors, he started to understand the bigger picture. The attack on the colony had not been random. The Zephyrians had arrived just in time to help, almost, as if they had been waiting nearby. Had they allowed the attack to happen, so they would have wounded humans to experiment on. Jake made his way back toward the medical areas, but instead of returning to his room, he searched for Lisa and Amy's quarters. He needed to warn them about what was really happening. He found Lisa in a small room near the main medical bay. She was sitting at a desk, working on a portable computer. When Jake entered, she looked up in surprise. Jake, you should be resting. Dr. Velther said, Dr. Velther is planning to experiment on the entire colony. Jake interrupted. Lisa stared at him. What are you talking about? Jake quickly told her what he had overheard. As he spoke, Lisa's face grew pale. That can't be right, she said when he finished. They're helping us. They saved the colony. Did they? Jake asked. Or did they let it happen so they would have test subjects? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Jake, you're talking about a conspiracy. The Zephyrians are our allies. Are they? Look at what they did to Tom, Amy, and Danny. Look at what they did to me. They saved your lives, Lisa said, but she sounded less certain than before. They turned us into experiments, Jake corrected, and now they want to do it to everyone else. Lisa stood up and began pacing. Even if what you heard is true, what can we do about it? We're on their ship, light years from Earth. We have to warn the colony, Jake said, and we have to stop them from taking more test subjects. How? Lisa asked. We're completely dependent on them. Jake thought about his enhanced abilities. He was stronger and faster than before. His senses were sharper. Maybe that was enough. I don't know yet, he admitted. But I have to try. Lisa looked at him carefully. Jake, you're different. I can see it. The way you move, the way you look. What exactly did they do to you? I don't know the details, Jake said. But whatever it was, it worked. I'm stronger. Faster. I heal quickly. My senses are enhanced. Enhanced enough to fight them? Jake considered the question. Maybe. But first I need to understand exactly what was done to me. And I need to find a way to help Tom, Amy, and Danny. The others are dying, aren't they? Lisa asked quietly. Jake nodded. Velther says some subjects adapt and others don't. The ones who don't adapt die. And Velther considers that acceptable. Lisa sat down heavily. This is a nightmare. It's going to get worse, Jake said. They're planning to enhance more humans. Velther talked about entire armies of enhance. Soldiers, To fight these devourers? Lisa asked. Yes, but they don't care how many humans die in the process. Lisa looked up at Jake. What do? We gather information, Jake said. We find out everything we can about the enhancement process and about these devourers. And we look for a way to stop Velther from experimenting on more humans. That sounds dangerous, Lisa said. Everything is dangerous now, Jake replied. But I won't let them turn the colony into a laboratory. As if summoned by their conversation, Velther appeared in the doorway. The alien medic's compound eyes focused immediately on Jake. You should be in your quarters, Velther said. Rest is essential for the completion of your enhancement process. My enhancement process is complete, Jake said. No, Velther replied. You are still adapting. The biological changes will continue for several more days. Jake felt a chill. What kind of changes? Improvements, Velther said. Your body is still integrating the biosynthetic elements. Full adaptation will make you even stronger. I don't want to be stronger, Jake said. Velther's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly. What you want is irrelevant. The process cannot be stopped once begun. Jake stared at the alien medic. You mean I'm going to keep changing? You are going to keep improving, Velther corrected. Soon you will understand the gift you have been given. And if I don't want this gift, then you will die, Velther said simply. The enhancement process requires willing acceptance at the cellular level. Rejection means death. Jake felt trapped. He was changing into something he never asked to become, and he had no choice but to accept it or die. What about the others? Jake asked. Tom, Amy, and Danny? They are still adapting, Velther said. Some may yet succeed. Jake knew that was a lie. Velther was letting them suffer while collecting data on their failures. I want to see them, Jake said. Later, Velther replied. First, you must return to your quarters for monitoring. Jake looked at Lisa, then back at Velther. I'm not going anywhere until I see my friends. Velther's forearms moved in what Jake was beginning to recognize as a threatening posture. You will. Jake followed Velther through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked. The walls were alive with moving patterns of light, and the floor felt soft under his feet. Everything about the Zephyrian ship was organic and strange. Like being inside a living creature, they stopped at a door that opened without any visible mechanism. Inside was a large room with several beds arranged in a circle. Jake's heart sank when he saw the occupants. Tom Bradley lay on the nearest bed, his body covered in patches of the same silver mesh that Jake had worn. But Tom's mesh was different. It pulsed with angry red light, and Jake could see that the man's skin underneath was pale and sweaty. Tom's eyes were open, but they didn't seem to focus on anything. Tom? Jake called out, moving closer to the bed. Tom's head turned slowly toward Jake's voice. When he spoke, his voice was weak and confused. Jake, is that you? I can't see very well. Everything looks strange. Jake looked at Velther. What's wrong with him? His body is having difficulty accepting the enhancements, Velther explained. The process is not always smooth. Jake moved to the next bed. Amy Foster was there, but she looked nothing like the confident scientist he remembered. Her hair had turned completely white, and her hands shook constantly. She was staring at the ceiling with wide, frightened eyes. Amy, Jake said gently. She turned toward him, and Jake saw that her eyes had changed. They were still human, but they seemed to see too much. Amy flinched away from him as if his presence hurt her. The lights, she whispered. They're so bright. And the sounds. I can hear everything. Every heartbeat. Every breath. It won't stop. Jake felt sick. Velther, what did you do to her? The enhancement process affects the nervous system, Velther said calmly. Some subjects experience sensory overload during the adaptation period. Adaptation period? Jake demanded. How long does this last? It varies, Velther replied. Some subjects adapt quickly. Others take longer. Some never fully adapt. Jake moved to the third bed. Danny Walsh was there, the teenage colonist who had been helping in the fields when the attack happened. Danny was sitting up, but something was wrong with his movements. They were too fast, too jerky, like he couldn't control his own body. "Danny?" Jake said. The boy turned toward him, and Jake saw that Danny's pupils were huge and completely black. "Jake, you look different. Everything looks different. I can see so much more now. Too much more." Danny tried to stand up, but his legs moved too quickly, and he fell back onto the bed. "I can't control it," he said, his voice shaking. "I try to move slowly, but everything happens too fast." Jake looked around the room at the three other enhanced humans. All of them were suffering in different ways. All of them were being watched by floating devices that Jake now realized were monitoring equipment. "This is what you did to us," Jake said to Velther. "This is your enhancement process." "You are different," Velther replied. "Your adaptation has been remarkably successful." "Why?" Jake asked. "What makes me different from them?" Velther's compound eyes studied Jake carefully. "I do not know. Your biological responses have been unique from the beginning." Jake felt a chill. "How many others have you tried this on?" "You are the first humans to undergo the process," Velther said. "The first?" Jake stared at the alien medic. "You mean we're your first test subjects?" "The first of your species, yes," Velther confirmed. "But the enhancement process has been used successfully on other species." Jake looked back at his suffering friends. "Successfully?" "The results vary by species," Velther said. "Some adapt better than others. And what happens to the ones who don't adapt?" Velther was quiet for a long moment. "The process is still being refined." Jake understood what that meant. "The ones who didn't adapt died." He looked at Tom, Amy, and Danny again. "Were they dying too? Can you help them?" Jake asked. "I am monitoring their progress," Velther said. "Some may still adapt successfully, and if they don't, I will do what I can to make them comfortable," Velther replied. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "You're talking about letting them die. I am talking about accepting the limitations of current medical science," Velther said calmly. Jake wanted to hit something. Instead, he turned back to his friends. "I'm going to stay with them. That is not advisable," Velther said. "You still require monitoring." "I'm not leaving them alone," Jake said firmly. Velther moved closer, and Jake noticed that the alien medic's forearms were positioned in a way that looked ready to restrain him. "You do not understand. Your presence may affect their adaptation process." "What do you mean?" "Enhanced subjects sometimes influence each other," Velther explained. "Your successful adaptation might interfere with their natural progression." Jake stared at the alien medic. "You're saying I might make them worse?" "It is possible," Velther said. "The enhancement process creates biological fields that can interact in unpredictable ways." Jake looked at his friends again. Tom was mumbling to himself, his eyes still unfocused. Amy was curled up in a ball, her hands pressed against her ears. Danny was twitching uncontrollably, his movements becoming more erratic. "This is torture," Jake said quietly. "This is medical treatment," Velther corrected. "Experimental medical. Treatment designed to save lives, by destroying them. By improving them," Velther said. "The process is not perfect, but it is better than death." Jake turned to face the alien medic. "Is it? Look at them. Are they better than dead?" Velther's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly. "They are alive. Barely," Jake said. "And in constant pain. Pain is temporary," Velther replied. "Enhancement is permanent." Jake felt a cold realization wash over him. "You don't care about them, do you? You don't care about any of us. We're just experiments to you." "I care about advancing medical science," Velther said. "I care about preventing unnecessary death, by causing unnecessary suffering, by pushing the boundaries of what is possible," Velther corrected. Progress requires sacrifice. Jake looked at the monitoring devices floating around each bed. You're recording everything, aren't you? Every reaction, every symptom. Of course, Velther said. The data is essential for improving the process. For the next batch of test subjects, Jake said. For the next group of patients who require emergency treatment, Velther corrected. Jake walked back to Tom's bed. His friend was still mumbling, but Jake could make out some of the words now. Tom was talking about the attack, reliving it over and over again. Tom, Jake said gently, can you hear me? Tom's eyes focused on Jake for a moment. The pain, he whispered. It never stops. Inside my head, inside my bones. What did they do to us? Jake looked back at Velther. Can you give him something? For the pain? Pain medication might interfere with the adaptation process, Velther said. So you're going to let him suffer? I am going to monitor his progress, Velther replied. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. You're a monster. I am a scientist, Velther said calmly. And you are my most successful subject. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Subject? That's all we are to you. You are the first human to successfully integrate with our enhancement technology, Velther said. Your biological responses are remarkable. Jake realized something. That's why you've been watching me so closely. Not to make sure I'm okay, but to study me. To understand how you adapted so successfully, Velther confirmed. So that the process can be improved for others. Jake looked around the room at his suffering friends. Improve? You call this an improvement? You are an improvement, Velther said. You are stronger, faster, more resilient than before. You heal quickly and your senses are enhanced. And what about them? Jake gestured toward the other beds. They are learning experiences, Velther said without emotion. Jake stared at the alien medic. Learning experiences. You mean failures. I mean data points, Velther corrected. Every subject teaches us something new. Jake felt sick. You're not trying to help them anymore, are you? You're just watching them suffer so you can learn from. I am documenting their responses for future reference, Velther said. While they die. While they adapt or fail to adapt, Velther corrected. Both outcomes provide valuable information. Jake looked at his friends one more time. Tom was crying now, tears streaming down his face as he mumbled about the pain. Amy was rocking back and forth, her hands still pressed against her ears. Danny was twitching so violently that Jake was afraid he might hurt himself. I won't let you do this, Jake said quietly. You cannot stop the process, Velther replied. It is already underway. Maybe not, Jake said, but I can make sure you don't. Get any more test subjects. Velther's compound eyes focused on Jake with sudden intensity. You do not understand the larger picture. Then explain it to me. The enhancement process is not just about improving individuals, Velther said. It is about preparing your species. For what is coming. Jake felt a chill. What's coming? Something that will require every advantage we can give you, Velther replied. Something that will make these temporary discomforts seem insignificant. Jake stared at the alien medic. You're preparing us for war. Velther's bioluminescent patterns pulsed once, slowly. I am preparing you for survival. Jake woke up feeling better than he had in years. The silver mesh covering his body had dissolved sometime during the night, leaving behind smooth, unmarked skin. He sat up quickly, surprised by how easy the movement was. His muscles felt strong and responsive, not at all like someone who had been near death just days ago. The medical bay was quiet, except for the soft humming he had noticed before. Early morning light filtered through what he assumed were windows, though they looked more like panels of living crystal. Jake looked around for his clothes, but found only a simple gray uniform hanging on a hook near his bed dot. As he dressed, Jake noticed his reflection in a polished surface on the wall. He looked the same, but somehow better. His skin had a healthy glow, and his eyes seemed brighter. The old scar on his left arm from a training accident was completely gone. Even his hair looked thicker. You should not be out of bed. Jake turned to find Dr. Velther standing behind him. The alien medic had appeared without making a sound, those compound eyes already fixed on Jake with that same intense focus. I feel fine, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. Better than fine, actually. Velther moved closer, and Jake noticed that the creature's bioluminescent patterns were pulsing faster than before. The enhancement process is not complete. You require monitoring. For how long? Jake asked. Until I determine it is safe, Velther replied. Your biological systems are still adapting to the changes. Jake finished putting on the uniform and turned to face the alien medic. What changes, exactly? And don't tell me you just healed me. I know what being healed feels like, and this isn't it. Velther's small tentacles around its mouth moved slightly, which Jake was beginning to recognize as a sign of the creature thinking. Your cellular structure has been modified to accept biosynthetic enhancements. This allows for improved healing, increased strength, and enhanced sensory capabilities. You mean you experimented on me, Jake said flatly. I saved your life. Velther corrected. The enhancements were necessary to prevent your death. Jake started walking toward the door, but Velther moved to block his path. The alien medic's forearms spread wide, and Jake realized how much stronger the creature was than it looked. I need to see the others, Jake said. The other humans who were hurt. Later, Velther said. First, you must undergo evaluation. Jake stared at those compound eyes. Are you keeping me prisoner? I am ensuring your safety, Velther replied. And the safety of others. The way the alien medic said those words made Jake's blood run cold. What do you mean, the safety of others? Before Velther could answer, Lisa Carter entered the medical bay. She looked surprised to see Jake standing in dress. Jake, you should be resting, she said. So everyone keeps telling me, Jake replied. But I feel fine, better than fine. Lisa glanced at Velther, and Jake caught something in her expression. Fear? Concern? The doctor says you need more time to recover. The doctor says a lot of things, Jake said. But I'm starting to think there's more to this than just recovery. Lisa sighed. Jake, can we talk privately? Velther stepped aside. But Jake noticed the alien medic didn't go far. Those compound eyes remained fixed on him, even as the creature pretended to work at a floating panel. What's really going on here? Jake asked quietly. The Zephyrians saved the colony, Lisa said. Without them, we would all be dead. I'm grateful for that, Jake said. But that doesn't explain why I'm being watched like a lab rat. Lisa looked uncomfortable. Dr. Velther's just being careful. The medical procedures they use are very advanced. Advanced how? Jake, you were dying. Your organs were shutting down. Normal medicine couldn't have saved you. Jake studied Lisa's face, but their medicine did more than save me, didn't it? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. You should ask Dr. Velther about the details. I tried. The good doctor isn't very talkative about specifics. Maybe there's a reason for that, Lisa said softly. Jake felt a chill. What kind of reason? Before Lisa could answer, Amy Foster entered the medical bay. She looked excited about something. Jake, you're up, Amy said. How do you feel? Like, everyone's avoiding my questions, Jake replied. Amy glanced at Lisa, then at Velther. What questions? About what was really done to me, Jake said. About these enhancements everyone keeps mentioning. Amy's excitement faded. Jake, maybe you should focus on getting better. I'm better, Jake said firmly. Better than I've ever been. That's the problem. Amy and Lisa exchanged looks. Jake was getting tired of being the only one who didn't know what was happening. I want to see the others, Jake said. The other humans who were treated. That might not be a good idea. Right now, Lisa said. Why not? Because not all of them are doing as well as you are, Amy said quietly. Jake felt his stomach drop. What do you mean? Velther moved closer, those compound eyes never leaving Jake. The enhancement process affects each individual differently. You have shown remarkable adaptation. And the others haven't? Jake asked. Some have had complications, Velther admitted. Jake pushed past Lisa and Amy toward the door. I need to see them. This time, Velther didn't try to stop him physically. Instead, the alien medic simply said, "Very well. But you must understand that what you see may be disturbing." Jake paused at the door. Disturbing how? The human body does not always accept enhancement gracefully, Velther explained. Some subjects experience rejection symptoms. Subjects? Jake turned around slowly. Is that what we are to you? Subjects? Velther's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly. You are patients who required emergency treatment. With experimental procedures, Jake said. It wasn't a question. All advanced medicine begins as experimental, Velther replied. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. You used us as test subjects without our consent. You were dying, Velther said simply. There was no time for consent protocols. There's always time for consent, Jake shot back. Unless you don't care about getting it. Lisa stepped forward. Jake, please. Dr. Velther saved your life by turning me into what? Jake demanded. What am I now? What are these enhancements really for? Velther moved closer, and Jake noticed the creature's 4 arms were positioned in a way that looked almost defensive. The enhancements improve your biological capabilities. Increased strength, faster healing, enhanced senses. For what purpose? Jake asked. To preserve your life, Velther said. Jake stared at the alien medic. That's not an answer. It is the only answer I can give at this time, Velther replied. Jake turned to Lisa and Amy. Did you know about this? About what they were really doing? Both women looked uncomfortable. We knew they were using advanced medical techniques, Lisa said. But not that they were experimenting on us, Jake said. Amy spoke up. Jake, you have to understand. Without their help, you would have died. Maybe, Jake said. But at least I would have died human. The words hung in the air. Velther's compound eyes seemed to focus even more intently on Jake. You are still human, the alien medic said softly. Enhanced, but still human. How can you be sure? Jake asked. Because I have been monitoring your biological responses very carefully, Velther replied. Your humanity remains intact. Jake felt a chill at the creature's words. You've been watching me constantly, Velther confirmed. The enhancement process requires careful observation to ensure successful integration. For how long? Until the process is complete, Velther said. Jake looked around the medical bay, really seeing, if for the first time, the strange symbols on the walls, the floating panels, the otherworldly technology. He was trapped in an alien laboratory, and he had no idea what they had really done to him. I want to see the others now, Jake said firmly. Velther nodded slowly. Very well. But remember, their experiences may be different from yours. As they prepared to leave the medical bay, Jake caught Velther watching him again. Those compound eyes held an expression he couldn't quite read. It might have been scientific curiosity, or it might have been something else entirely. Either way, Jake was beginning to realize that his ordeal was far from over. In fact, it might just be beginning. Jake Martinez felt like he was drowning in fire. His body burned from the inside out, and every breath sent sharp pain through his chest. The last thing he remembered was the plasma blast hitting him during the attack on the colony. The raiders had come out of nowhere, striking fast and hard at the small human settlement on Kepler 442b. He tried to open his eyes, but the light hurt too much. Everything felt wrong. The air smelled different, cleaner somehow. There was a strange humming, sound that he had never heard before. Jake forced his eyes open slowly, blinking against the soft blue glow that filled the room. This was not the Colony Medical Center. The walls were smooth and curved. made of some kind of white material that seemed to glow from within. Strange. Symbols moved across the surfaces like living things. The ceiling was high and dotted with floating lights that pulsed gently. Jake had never seen anything like it. He tried to sit up, but his body would not obey. Panic started to rise in his chest. Was he paralyzed? Jake looked down at himself and gasped. His arms and chest were covered in what looked like living silver mesh. The material moved slightly with each breath, and he could feel it working on his skin. It was not painful, but it was the strangest thing he had ever felt. Do not move, a voice said softly. Jake turned his head and saw something that made his heart stop. The creature standing beside his bed was tall and thin, almost 7 feet high. Its skin was pale blue-white and seemed to shimmer in the light. 4 arms moved gracefully as it adjusted something on a floating panel, but it was the face that held Jake's attention. The creature had no nose, just small slits where a nose should be. Its mouth was small and surrounded by tiny tentacles that moved when it spoke. And the eyes. Jake had never seen eyes like those before. They were huge, taking up most of the creature's face. They were made up of thousands of tiny hexagonal sections, like the eyes of an insect, but much more complex. And they were watching him with an intensity that made Jake want to hide. The creature's whole body seemed to pulse with soft light, patterns of bioluminescence moving under its skin. "You are awake," the creature said. The voice came from a small device attached to its chest, translating its words into English. "This is good. Your body responded well to the treatment." Jake tried to speak, but his throat felt raw. The creature moved closer, and Jake noticed that it glided rather than walk. 2 of its 4 arms reached out, and Jake flinched back. "I will not harm you," the creature said. "I am Dr. Velther. I am what you would call a medic. I have been treating your injuries." Jake managed to croak out a single word. "Where?" "You are on our medical ship," Velther replied. "Your colony was attacked. We arrived in time to help drive off the raiders, but many of your people were injured. You were the worst hurt." Jake's memories started to come back slowly. The attack had been sudden and brutal. The raiders had used plasma weapons and energy bombs. The colony's small medical center had been destroyed in the first minutes of the fight. Jake remembered trying to get the civilians to safety when the blast hit him. "How bad?" Jake asked. Velther's compound eyes studied him carefully. "You should have died. Your internal organs were badly damaged. Your skin was burned over 60% of your body. You had lost much blood." Jake looked down at himself again. The silver mesh covered most of his body, but he could see patches of his skin underneath. It looked normal, maybe even better than normal. There were no burn marks, no scars. "I do not understand," Jake said. "I feel fine. Weak, but fine. Our medicine is different from yours," Velther explained. "We do not just repair damage. We improve the biological systems while we heal." Jake did not like the sound of that. "What do you mean, improve?" Velther moved to another floating panel and touched it with one of its lower arms. "Your species is remarkable. Most beings cannot survive our healing process, but humans seem to adapt very well." Jake tried to sit up again, and this time his body obeyed. The silver mesh moved with him, supporting his movements. He felt stronger than he had in years, not weaker like he expected after such bad injuries. "What did you do to me?" Jake asked. "I saved your life," Velther replied. "But the process required certain modifications to your biological systems. Nothing harmful. Actually, quite beneficial." Jake did not trust the creature's calm tone. "What kind of modifications?" Before Velther could answer, another voice called out from across the room. "Jake, thank God you're awake." Jake turned to see Lisa Carter, the colony's administrator, walking toward him. She looked tired but unharmed. Behind her was Dr. Amy Foster, the colony's chief scientist. Both women looked worried. "How are you feeling?" Lisa asked, stopping at the edge of his bed. "Confused?" Jake replied honestly. "This thing says it saved my life, but I don't understand how." Amy stepped forward. "Jake, the Zephyrians have medical technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Dr. Velther used some kind of bioenhancement to heal your injuries." "Bioenhancement?" Jake looked back at Velther. "You mean you changed me?" "Only to save your life," Velther said. "The changes will help you heal faster and make you stronger. Most humans will consider this a gift." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "I never asked for any gifts." "You were unconscious and dying," Velther replied. There was no time to ask permission. Lisa put a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Jake, you've been unconscious for 3 days. Without Dr. Velther's help, you would have died within hours." Jake looked around the strange medical bay. "Where are the others?" "The people who were hurt in the attack. Most were treated and released," Amy said. "But a few others need the same treatment you did. They're in the recovery area." Jake noticed that Velther's compound eyes never left him, even when the creature was talking to the others. It was like being watched by 1,000 tiny eyes all at once. The attention made him uncomfortable. "I want to see them," Jake said. "You need more rest," Velther said quickly. "The enhancement process requires careful monitoring." "I'm fine," Jake insisted, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. The silver mesh moved with him, and he was surprised at how strong he felt. "I can walk." Velther moved to block his path, all 4 arms spread wide. "You must remain here for observation. The biological changes are not yet stable." Jake stood up slowly, testing his balance. He felt better than he had in months. "What biological changes? What did you really do to me?" "I told you," Velther replied. "I saved your life." "By changing me into what?" Jake stepped forward, and Velther backed away slightly. "I feel different, stronger. My vision seems sharper. What did you do?" Lisa stepped between them. "Jake, please. Dr. Velther helped us. Without the Zephyrians, the entire colony would have been destroyed." Jake looked at the alien medic again. Those compound eyes were still watching him with that same intense focus. Something about the way Velther looked at him made Jake think of a scientist studying an interesting specimen. "I want answers," Jake said. "Real answers, not more talk about saving my life." Velther's bioluminescent patterns pulsed faster. "In time, you will understand. For now, you must rest and allow the enhancements to stabilize." Jake felt a growing sense of unease. Enhancement. The word kept coming up. Whatever had been done to him, it was more than just healing. And from the way Velther was watching him, Jake suspected he was going to find out exactly what that meant, whether he wanted to or not.